Nathaniel Hale dropped to his knees on the sun-cracked grave and pressed his brow to the stone bearing her name. 5 summers. 5 years of whiskey silence and wilted flowers on dry July dirt. He didn't know the coffin below held nothing but river stones. He didn't know Eleanor Pierce was breathing that very night, scrubbing ash from his own hearth under a borrowed name. If this story moves you, please subscribe and stay with me to the end. Tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. I'd love to know how far this story has traveled tonight. Nathaniel Hale knelt on dry July grass and laid 3 white lilies against the headstone. He did not pray. He had stopped praying in the 2nd summer. "Morning, Mr. Hale," the groundskeeper said from the low iron gate. "Same hour, same flowers. Same woman, Tom. 5 years clean this August, sir. I can count. Didn't mean nothing by it." Nathaniel pressed his palm flat to the stone. The granite was already warm. "Nothing you could say to me today would bruise me worse than what yesterday's already done. You want me to leave off the weeding till you're gone, sir? No, do your work. Don't make her grave peculiar on my account." Tom tipped his straw hat and backed off through the cedars. Nathaniel stayed another quarter hour. He did not weep. He had not wept at this stone since the first winter, not because the grief had dulled, but because weeping felt too small a thing for what had been taken from him. A man weeps over a dog, a father, a crop lost to frost. Eleanor Pierce had been none of those things. She had been the reason his chest still rose and fell. She had gone into the ground at 19 years old, and nobody had ever let him see her face. That was the part that never healed. Not the loss, the not seeing. "Closed coffin is kindest, Nathaniel," her stepmother had told him that October. The fever left her, unrecognizable. He had believed her because he had no reason not to. That was the other part. The shame of how easily he had been handled. He rose, brushed the grass from his trousers, and walked down to where his horse was tied. "Back to the house, sir," his stableman called from the barn door. "Back to the house. Saddle the roan again at 6. I'm expected at the Pierces for supper." "The Pierces again, Mr. Hale?" "Every first Friday since the burial. You know that, Caleb?" "Yes, sir. Only it ain't a medicine, sir. A man don't heal by rubbing salt in himself on a schedule." Nathaniel paused with his hand on the saddle horn. "Did I ask you for medicine?" "No, sir." "Then saddle the roan for 6. "Yes, Mr. Hale." Mrs. Mercer met him at the side door with a cup of coffee and a tightness in her mouth that meant she had opinions she would not speak. "You don't have to say it," he said. "I wasn't going to, sir." "Yes, you were." "I was going to say your bath is drawn and your black coat is pressed." "Fine." "And that I don't reckon why you keep breaking bread with those people." "There, you did say it." "Only because you asked me to, sir." He took the coffee. "Eleanor grew up in that house, Mrs. Mercer. Her father still lives there. If I cut him off, I cut her off too. And I'm not prepared to do that." "She's been gone 5 years, Mr. Hale." "I know how long she's been gone." "Then forgive me for saying what I'm about to say. You don't owe a dead girl a single Friday more." He looked at the old housekeeper for a long moment. "You're wrong," he said quietly. "I owe her every Friday I'm still breathing." He drank the coffee and went upstairs to dress. Silas Pierce opened the door himself. "Nathaniel." "Mr. Pierce?" "You look tired, son." "I look the same as last month." "That's what I meant." Silas had aged faster than the calendar allowed. He was stooped at the shoulder gray at the temple, and the hand he held out did not stop shaking even when Nathaniel took it. "Come in. Abigail has set the table." "I imagine she has." Abigail Pierce rose from her chair with the smile she used on congregation members and merchants who owed her husband money. "Nathaniel, dear, you grow thinner every visit." "I eat, ma'am." "You ought to eat here more often. Clara's been practicing her roast." "Clara doesn't need to practice on me." Clara did not look up from her plate. Clara was 21 now, and she had been 16 the night her older sister was loaded into a carriage in the dark. She had not stopped flinching at the sound of carriage wheels since. "Good evening, Clara." "Good evening, Mr. Hale." "How's your needlework coming?" Fine, sir. Fine, sir. Abigail echoed a thin warning in her voice. Clara, sit up. Clara sat up. They ate. The conversation moved in the careful circles it always moved in the price of timber, the new pastor at the second church, the condition of the north pasture, and Nathaniel let it move because he had learned over 5 summers that Abigail always said one real thing per supper, and that you had to wait for it. She said it over the second course. Clara is of age now, Nathaniel. He set his fork down. So I've been told. She asked after you just last Sunday. Did she? A girl her age with no suitor is a weight on a household, you understand. I understand Clara is your daughter, and not merchandise, ma'am. Silas coughed into his napkin. Abigail did not flinch. You misread me, dear. I only mean that a man of your position, a man Eleanor would have wanted to see settled, don't. Eleanor would not have wanted you alone, Nathaniel. She was too loving a soul for that. Mrs. Pierce. Yes, dear. Say her name once more at this table, and I will put down my napkin. I will ride home, and I will not cross your threshold again. The silence sat on them like a hot iron. Silas stared at the tablecloth. Clara's hand had gone bloodless around her water glass. Abigail smiled. Of course, she said. Forgive me. A mother's worry. You are not her mother. I raised her from 12, Nathaniel. You buried her at 19. He left before dessert. He did not thank her. He did not thank Silas. He tipped his hat at Clara because Clara had done nothing except be born after a man with a weak spine and a woman with a sharp knife, and he had no quarrel with her. She followed him out onto the porch. Mr. Hale? Yes, Miss Clara. She looked back at the closed door, and then she looked at him, and then she looked at the floorboards. She used to talk about you, Clara said. Before. I know she did. Before she got sick, I mean. Before she... Clara. Yes, sir. He wanted to ask her the question he had been burying for 5 summers. He did not. Good night, Miss Clara. Good night, Mr. Hale. He rode home slow. The house was dark when he came up the drive, except for a single window burning low, the library window where Mrs. Mercer knew he liked to sit after a Friday at the Pierces, and not speak for an hour. He did not want to speak for an hour. He wanted to drink something, read nothing, and go to bed. Mrs. Mercer met him in the front hall. Sir. Mrs. Mercer. The new girl is cleaning the library hearth. At this hour. She begged the hour, sir. Said she works better when the house is asleep. Peculiar. She's peculiar. Hard worker, though. How long's she been with us? 2 years, sir. He stopped at the foot of the stairs. 2 years. Yes, sir. I don't know a new girl. I know every soul in this house. You don't notice the scullery, Mr. Hale. That's not a criticism. 2 years I haven't noticed a woman under my roof. She keeps to the back stairs. She's good at that. He considered that for a long beat, and something in his chest, something he didn't yet have a word for, tightened. What's her name? Mara Reed. Send her off the hearth. I'll sit in the library before bed. Yes, sir. But when he pushed the library door open, the girl was still there. She was on her knees in front of the cold hearth with a tin bucket of ash beside her, and her back was to the door, and she was scrubbing the stone as if scrubbing were a form of prayer she could not stop mid-sentence. Her sleeves were rolled to the elbow. Her hair was pinned up under a plain linen cap. She did not turn when the door opened. Beg pardon, sir, she said low. Mrs. Mercer told me you was at the Pierces till midnight. I came home early. I'll finish and go, sir. Leave it. Near done, sir. I said leave it. Her hand stopped. She did not turn around. She did not stand. Yes, sir. Stand up, girl. She did not stand up. Girl. Yes, sir. I'm standing, sir. Only my knees been. And she rose with a small practiced care, keeping her face angled toward the hearth, the way a woman learns to angle her face when she has spent years learning not to be looked at. Turn around, Mara. Sir. Turn around. She turned. She kept her eyes low. She held the scrub brush in front of her apron with both hands the way a child might hold a hymnal. "Good night, sir," she said. "I'll be out your way." She bent to gather the tin bucket, and the bucket slipped. It clanged against the stone and rolled, and ash went up in a gray cloud, and she dropped to her knees a second time so fast it looked like her legs had been kicked out from under her, and her hands flew to the spilled ash with a panic far larger than a spilled bucket could justify. "I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'll clean it. I'll pay for it. Please, I'll pay. Mara." "Please don't tell Mrs. Mercer, sir. I need the place, please." "Mara." "Please, sir. I'll scrub through the night, I swear on." He went to one knee beside her and caught her wrist. He meant to catch her wrist to still her. He meant to say, "Girl, it's ash, nobody pays for ash in this house." He meant to say, "Stand up, go to bed, we'll sweep it tomorrow." He did not say any of those things, because his thumb had come down by accident on the inside of her wrist at the base of her thumb, and there was a scar there, small, crescent-shaped, pale against the gray of ash. He had kissed that scar. He had kissed it on a summer evening under an apple tree in his father's orchard, when the woman who owned that wrist had been 17 years old and had sliced her hand open on a ribbon of tin from a biscuit box and had laughed while he pressed his handkerchief to it and had said, "You worry like a grandmother, Nathaniel," and he had said, "Then give a grandmother a kiss," and she had. He stopped breathing. She felt him stop breathing. She tried to pull her wrist away. He did not let go. "Sir, don't move. Sir, please. Don't you move. You're hurting my hand, sir." "No, I'm not. I'm not hurting you. Look at me." "Sir, look at me." She looked up, and he saw her eyes. He had known those eyes before they had any of this pain in them. He had known them across a Christmas table, across a Sunday pew, across a ballroom in Salem the winter he turned 22. He had known them closed, asleep on his shoulder on the porch of her father's summer house, the one time her stepmother had let him sit with her past dark. He had known them furious when she had disagreed with him about a newspaper editorial. He had known them laughing. He had never in his life known them afraid of him. They were afraid of him now. "No," he said. It came out of him like a word pulled by force from a deeper place than thought. "No." "Sir, please let me go." "No." "Sir, say my name." "Sir, I don't." "Say my name. You know my name. Say it." "Mr. Hale, sir, please." "Not that name." "Sir, I don't know what you—" "Say my name." Her mouth opened. It closed. Her eyes began to fill, and she tried to turn her face away, and she could not turn it away because he was holding her wrist, and she was on her knees, and she had nowhere on earth left to go. "Nathaniel." It was not a whisper. It was not a cry. It was a word spoken under the roof of her own mouth, barely let out the way you say the name of a man you have not allowed yourself to say aloud in 5 years, because saying it aloud will cost you your last sanity. "Nathaniel." He let go of her wrist. He did not stand up. He sat back on the library floor in his evening coat with ash on his cuffs and looked at the woman he had buried 5 summers ago, alive on her knees in front of his own hearth, and he did the thing he had not done since the first winter after her funeral. He wept. He wept without covering his face. She watched him weep, and she did not move toward him, and she did not move away. "Eleanor," he said, "don't." "Eleanor, please don't say it." "Eleanor Pierce, please." "How long?" "Don't." "How long have you been in my house?" She did not answer. "Eleanor, how long?" 2 years. 2 years. "Yes." "In my house?" "Yes, Nathaniel." "Under my roof?" "Yes." "Scrubbing my floors?" "Yes." "While I—" He could not finish. The sentence had too many endings. "While I slept 2 rooms above you, while I ate at your stepmother's table every first Friday, while I laid lilies on your grave, while I told every man in this county I would not marry because the only woman I would have married was buried at 19. She saw all those endings in his face. "I'm sorry," she said. "You're sorry." "I'm sorry, Nathaniel." You're sorry." "I didn't know what else to do." "You could have come to me." "No, I could not." "Eleanor." "No, I could not have come to you, Nathaniel Hale, and if you think on it for half a breath, you'll know why." He thought on it for half a breath. He knew why. He also knew in the same half-breath that every person who had told him she was dead had lied to his face, and watched him mourn and taken his hand in condolence, and sat across a dinner table from him 5 summers running and asked him to marry the younger sister. He got to his feet slowly. Eleanor flinched. She flinched the way a dog flinches that has been kicked for standing up. He saw the flinch. Something inside him, that had been grief for 5 summers, turned in that instant into a different thing entirely. He held out his hand to her. "Get up off that floor." "Nathaniel, I'm the help here. I can't." "Eleanor Pierce, get up off that floor. You will never kneel on a stone in this house again as long as I am living in it." She looked at his hand. She looked at his face. She put her ash-gray hand in his. And she stood. She stood, and her hand shook in his. "Sit down, Eleanor." "Nathaniel." "Sit down before you fall down." "I ain't going to fall." "That's the first lie you've told me tonight." "Sit." She sat on the edge of the leather chair, like a woman who had not been permitted to sit on furniture in 5 summers. She held her knees together. She kept the ash-gray hand turned inward so the scar would not look at him. He pulled the other chair up close and sat knee to knee with her. "Eleanor." "Don't call me that out loud, Nathaniel, please. There's nobody in this room but us. Mrs. Mercer is in the hall." "Mrs. Mercer has been in the hall for 40 years. Mrs. Mercer doesn't go telling tales." "You don't know what they'll do if they hear my name." "Who is they, Eleanor?" "You know who." "Say it." "Nathaniel." "Say it." "Abigail." "Louder." "Abigail Pierce, my stepmother." "Are you happy now, Nathaniel? Are you pleased I said it?" "No, I'm not pleased." "Tell me what she did." "I can't." "Tell me what she did to you." "Nathaniel Hale, I have been hiding in this house for 2 years. I have been hiding in a confinement house for 3. Before that, I have been hiding inside my own skin for 5 summers straight. And you cannot ask me to spill the whole of it in a single sitting, like it's ale from a jug." "Then spill the first cup." "What?" "The first cup. Tell me the first thing." She was quiet. Her chest rose and fell too fast. "The tea," she said. "The tea." "Yes." "What tea?" "The tea she gave me the afternoon you left for New York." He felt the bones of his jaw lock. "Go on." "She came in and she said, 'Eleanor, I've had your favorite brood sit with me a while before supper,' and I sat. Because she had never asked me to sit with her alone, and I thought, stupid girl, I thought maybe she'd warmed to me finally. Maybe she'd decided to let me be." "Eleanor." "I drank 2 swallows." Two. I remember counting because it tasted wrong, and I was trying to be polite. And by the 3rd swallow, the ceiling started sliding." "God above. Don't take his name. I ain't in the mood for his name tonight." Eleanor. "I woke up in the back of a carriage. My wrists were tied with a stocking. A stocking, Nathaniel. Her own stocking. I could smell her lavender on it." "Who was driving?" "A man I didn't know. A hired man. He didn't speak to me once in 3 days." 3 days. 3 days on a road I never saw the name of. And at the end of it, a house on a hill with no neighbors for 2 miles and a woman at the door who called me Ruth. Ruth. Ruth Calloway. That was the name they'd written on the papers. The papers said Ruth Calloway was a woman of 24, unmarried, afflicted with hysterical delusions, committed by her family for her own preservation. Eleanor. I was 19, Nathaniel. I was 19 years old, and engaged to be married in October, and I was locked in a wing of a house in the hills under a name that wasn't mine. And when I said, "My name is Eleanor Pierce," the matron wrote down in her book, "Patient persists in the delusion that she is a Massachusetts heiress." She wrote that down. She wrote that down every week. He stood up. He sat back down. He stood up again. He put his hand on the mantel and he leaned on it because if he did not lean on something, he was going to put his fist through a wall. Who signed her in? Nathaniel. Who signed the papers, Eleanor? My father. Silas signed. Silas signed. Silas Pierce signed a paper that said his daughter was mad. Silas Pierce signed anything Abigail put in front of him. You know what he is. I know what he is. I just ate his bread tonight. I'm sorry. Don't you be sorry. Don't you dare be sorry in this room. Nathaniel, sit down. You're frightening me. He turned fast. She flinched. He saw the flinch. He sat back down immediately, and he kept his hands in his lap where she could see them. I won't move sudden again, he said. I swear it on my mother's grave. Don't swear on graves tonight. Fair. On something else then. On this fire. On the floor you were scrubbing. On anything you name. On yourself, Nathaniel. Swear on yourself. I swear on myself. She nodded once, very small. Keep going, he said. Please. What else do you want to know? Everything. Eleanor, everything. But slow. 1 cup at a time. The second cup is worse than the first. I'll drink it anyway. She closed her eyes. They took my hair. What? First week, they shaved my head to the scalp. Matron said lice, but there were no lice. It was to make me look like what the papers said I was. A mad woman has no long hair in her own portrait, Nathaniel. It had to match the page. Eleanor. I cried for 3 days after the shearing. And then I stopped crying because crying was listed in the book as a symptom. Crying was a symptom. Crying was a symptom. Laughing was a symptom. Sleeping too long was a symptom. Not sleeping was a symptom. Asking questions was the worst symptom. I learned fast. How fast? Inside a month I could sit 10 hours with my hands folded in my lap and a smile like a pewter plate. I learned it watching the other women, the ones who'd been there longest. They were the quietest. They were the safest. And you stayed there 3 years? 3 years and 4 months. And nobody wrote. Nobody came for you. Nobody asked. Who was there to ask Nathaniel? My father signed the papers. My stepmother told the town I was buried. Clara was 16 and scared of her own shadow. I would have asked. I would have torn that house down stone by stone if you'd known. If I'd known. You didn't know. I stood over an empty grave for 5 summers, Eleanor. I know you did. How do you know? Because Tom the groundskeeper told the butcher, and the butcher told the laundress at my confinement house, and the laundress told me on the back steps one afternoon while we beat the sheets. She said, "There's a young man over in Essex County goes every Friday to his fiancée's grave with white flowers. Ain't that the saddest thing you ever heard, Ruth?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am. That is a sad thing." And I went back inside and I put my face in a linen cupboard, and I bit the linen so I wouldn't scream. Eleanor? Don't touch me yet, Nathaniel. I'm not done. I won't. The laundress was kinder than most. She's the one who told me about the winter the sickness came. What winter? The winter before last. A fever went through the house. Matron and 2 of the guards took to their beds. Doors that had been locked for years went unlocked for an hour at a time. I walked out of a side kitchen at first light with a wool cloak I stole off a hook and 40 cents I took from a jar. 40 cents. 40 cents and a crust of bread. That's what I had when I started walking back to Massachusetts. How long did you walk? 11 days. 11. I slept in 2 barns, a chapel, and a stand of pines. A Quaker woman in Connecticut fed me a bowl of beans and didn't ask my name. A man with a wagon took me the last 40 miles because his wife had died the winter before, and he said I had his wife's eyes and could not bear to leave me on the road. God bless that man. I told you not to bless anyone tonight. I'm sorry. When I came into Salem, I went first to my father's house. He froze. You went home. I went to the kitchen door, at night. I stood in the alley behind the pantry, and I watched Abigail through the window. Eleanor. She was laughing, Nathaniel. She was laughing at some joke my father made about cider. She was wearing my mother's pearls. Your mother's? My mother's pearls. The ones my father swore were locked in the bank for me until my wedding. She was wearing them at a Tuesday supper like they were a kitchen apron. Eleanor. And I understood right then, standing in that alley with 40 cents left and no name, that if I knocked on that door, they would put me back in the carriage before the bread cooled on the table. Yes. Yes. Yes, they would have. I know those people now. They would have. Now you know them. Now I know them. Go on. I walked to your house. He did not breathe. You walked to my house. I walked to your gate. I stood at your gate from the last of dusk till past midnight. I watched your library window. I saw you pass the window once with a glass in your hand. Eleanor. I wanted to walk up the drive, Nathaniel. I wanted to walk up the drive, and I wanted to pound on your front door, and I wanted to say my name, and I wanted you to know me. Why didn't you? Because of what I am. What you are. A woman whose father signed a paper that said she was mad. A woman whose name is on a gravestone. A woman a town has grieved for 5 summers and closed the book on. If I walk up that drive, Nathaniel Hale, and I say, I'm Eleanor Pierce, who believes me? The law. The church. The men who drink with my father at Saturday market. I would have believed you. Yes. You would have believed me. And then they would have locked you up next to me for harboring a lunatic. Don't what, Nathaniel? Don't be practical. I learned practical, sir. I learned it in a house on a hill. I learned it real good. So you went around to the back. I went around to the back. I waited 3 days in a boarding house on my last coins, and then I walked up to your kitchen door, and I asked your housekeeper for work. And I said my name was Mara Reed, and she looked at me the way a woman looks at another woman who's clearly fleeing something, and she said, "Can you scrub a hearth, girl?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "Keep to the back stairs and don't talk to the master." And I said, "Yes, ma'am." And Nathaniel Hale, I have kept to those stairs for 2 years. 2 years under my roof. 2 years. Eleanor. Don't say it yet. Eleanor. Don't say anything soft yet. I can't hold soft things right now. My hands shake when people are soft with me. You'll have to be rough a while longer. Is that all right? That's all right. Good. Eleanor, one thing. One thing. Did you ever see me? In those 2 years. Close up. Yes. When? Last February. You came down to the kitchen at 4 in the morning because you couldn't sleep. You asked Mrs. Mercer for hot milk. I was at the back sink peeling turnips for the next day's stew because I couldn't sleep either. You passed within 2 steps of me. You said, "Good morning," without looking at me. I said, "Good morning, sir," without looking at you. You drank your milk and went back upstairs. February. February. I passed within 2 steps of you. Yes, Nathaniel. And you let me walk back upstairs. I let you walk back upstairs. He made a sound. It was not a word. It was the sound a man makes when a bone sets wrong. I am going to ask you a question, he said. I want a truthful answer. Ask. Tonight, when I came in this library, did you know it was me in the doorway? Yes. You knew it was me, and you did not turn. I did not turn. Why? Because I have not turned in 2 years, Nathaniel Hale. Because turning is how you get caught. Because the day I turn is the day I go back in the carriage. Because if Abigail Pierce hears that Eleanor Pierce is alive, she will not pay a doctor this time, she will pay a gravedigger. She would not dare. She dared once. He had no answer for that. All right, he said finally. All right what? All right. Now hear me. I'm hearing. You will sleep tonight in the green bedroom on the 2nd floor. Nathaniel the help sleep on the attic floor. You are not the help. Tonight, I am the help. Tomorrow, we'll see what I am. Tonight, I am Mara Reed in your servant's book, and that is what I have to be until you and I know what we are doing. He stopped. He breathed. You're right, he said. You're right. I'm moving too fast. I have mourned you for 5 summers, and I have had you back for a quarter of an hour, and I am already trying to put you in a proper bed. A quarter of an hour, give or take. A quarter of an hour, Nathaniel Hale. Yes. We will have more quarters. Yes, we will. But tonight, I go back up the attic stairs. Tonight you go back up the attic stairs. And tomorrow I ride to the courthouse. The courthouse. I will not ride to Silas's door tomorrow, Eleanor. Not until I have something in my saddlebag that Abigail Pierce cannot laugh off over a Sunday roast. I will ride to the courthouse. I will ride to Dr. Bell's. He's Abigail's physician, isn't he? He is. I know he is. I know it in my gut, and I have known it in my gut for 5 summers, and I did nothing with the knowing. I am going to do something with the knowing now. Nathaniel. Yes, they will come for me when they hear you're asking. They will not know I'm asking. I was a merchant's son before I was a grieving man. I know how to ask quiet. Promise me you will ask quiet. I promise I will ask quiet. Promise me you will not go to my father first. I promise I will not go to your father first. Promise me one more. Anything. Promise me that if anything happens to you in the asking, if a horse throws you, if a ledger burns, if Abigail Pierce hears a whisper and sends a man, you will come home and you will tell me before you do anything rash. Because I have been a piece of furniture in your life for 2 years, and I cannot be a piece of furniture in your grief again. I promise. Say it proper. I promise, Eleanor Pierce, that I will come home to you before I do anything rash. Good. She stood up. She was unsteady. She braced her hand on the back of the chair. Eleanor. Yes. One last. Your hair. She touched her linen cap. It grew back, she said. Most of it. May I? She hesitated. She lifted her hand and she pulled the cap off her head. Her hair was shorter than a woman's hair ought to be in 1818. It was cut rough at the jaw, the ends uneven where she had taken kitchen scissors to it herself in a boarding house mirror. It was the color he remembered, wheat at sundown. He had told her that once under an apple tree, and she had laughed at him for being poetic. She was not laughing now. Say something, she said. Don't just look. It's yours, he said. It is yours, and it is still beautiful, and I will spend the rest of the nights I have left on this earth getting used to the fact that you are under my roof on purpose. Don't be poetic, Nathaniel. I can't help it. You used to laugh at me for it. I remember. Do you? I remember every word you ever said to me under that apple tree, Nathaniel Hale. I kept them. You cannot take a woman's memories with a stocking and a cup of tea. I kept every single one of them. You were in that house on the hill with me for 3 years and 4 months, whether you knew it or not. He did not trust his voice. He nodded. She put the cap back on her head. She gathered the tin bucket and the scrub brush. She turned toward the door, and then she stopped with her hand on the knob. Nathaniel. Yes. If I am not in this house tomorrow morning when you come down to breakfast, you will be in this house tomorrow morning. If I am not, Eleanor. If I am not, it will not be because I ran. Understand me. It will be because they came. They will not come tonight. You don't know that. I know that because I will sit awake in this chair till dawn. Nathaniel. Go to bed. Eleanor Pierce. Go up the back stairs as Mara read one more night. In the morning we will begin undoing what was done. She opened the door. She paused in the doorway without turning. Thank you, she said, very quiet, for weeping. For weeping. Men don't always weep when they find out. I was afraid you wouldn't. She went through the door and she closed it behind her, and Nathaniel Hale sat down in the leather chair in front of a hearth that was still full of cold ash and a scrub brush. She had left on the stone, and he did not sleep, and he did not drink, and he did not move until the first gray light came up over the kitchen garden, and he heard very faintly through the floor above him the sound of a woman's footstep crossing a room he had not known she lived in for 2 years. Then he stood up and he rang for his horse. Caleb was already at the barn door with the roan saddled when Nathaniel came down the porch steps in yesterday's coat. Mr. Hale. Caleb. You didn't sleep, sir. I didn't. Where we riding? Courthouse first, then Dr. Bell's. Dr. Bell, Abigail Pierce's doctor. That's the one. Sir, begging your pardon, but that's the devil's own rounds before breakfast. Then we'll go without breakfast, Caleb. Yes, sir. Nathaniel swung up. His hands were steady. His mind was not. He had sat in the leather chair until dawn, turning over every Friday supper of 5 summers, like stones in a riverbed, and under each stone he had found the same thing. Abigail Pierce's small white hand slid across a tablecloth, closing around a fork, closing around a pearl, closing around a girl's life. Caleb. Sir, if anybody rides up to this house today while I'm gone, anybody you are to come find me at a gallop. You do not stop at the well. You do not water the horse. You ride. Who am I watching for, Mr. Hale? Abigail Pierce. A carriage you don't know. A man you don't know. Mr. Hale. Just do it, Caleb. Yes, sir. He rode. The county clerk at the courthouse was a man named Peyton, who had played chess with Nathaniel's father for 20 winters. Nathaniel Hale, you are bright and early. Mr. Peyton. What brings a grieving man to my office at 7:30? I'd like to see a commitment paper. Peyton's quill paused over his ledger. Whose? Eleanor Pierce. The old man set the quill down. Son. Don't call me son, Mr. Peyton. Not this morning. Nathaniel, that girl is buried. Is she? What kind of question is that? A plain one. I would like to see the commitment paper that was signed on Eleanor Pierce in September of 1813. There is no commitment paper on a dead girl, Nathaniel. Then there is no harm in checking the book. Peyton looked at him a long moment. Why? Because I have a reason. What reason? A reason I will bring to this desk with a sheriff, if you make me bring it to this desk with a sheriff. Mr. Peyton, I have known you since I was 6 years old. I am asking you a favor. Check the book. Peyton exhaled through his nose, and he got up, and he went to a shelf, and he took down a black-bound ledger from the year 1813, and he sat back down, and he turned pages. He turned pages for a long time. He stopped. Huh. What? There is a paper. Nathaniel's hand tightened on the brim of his hat. Read it to me. Committed this 17th day of September 1813. Miss Ruth Calloway, age 24, unmarried, of uncertain parentage, to the care of the Mercer House in Worcester County for the treatment of hysterical affliction. Signed, Silas Pierce. Silas Pierce signed a paper for a Ruth Calloway. He did. And where did Silas Pierce find a Ruth Calloway? Nathaniel. Where, Mr. Peyton? Son, I don't know. It isn't my business to know. Is it not? Nathaniel. One more question, Mr. Peyton. Then I'll leave you your morning. Ask. Who witnessed the signing? Peyton looked down at the page. He did not speak. Mr. Peyton. Dr. Amos Bell. Dr. Amos Bell. Yes. Dr. Amos Bell witnessed Silas Pierce committing a woman named Ruth Calloway to a house in Worcester in September of 1813. That is what the page says, son. The same September my Eleanor was laid in the ground. Nathaniel, please. Make me a copy. Son. Make me a copy, Mr. Peyton, on your stationery, with your seal, and do not tell a soul in this town that I asked for it. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not next Sunday after church, not your wife, not God Almighty. Nathaniel Hale. Mr. Peyton, I am asking you for a kindness. I will remember it. The old clerk looked at him a long time. Then he took a clean sheet and he dipped his quill. Your father would be proud of you this morning, he said quietly. My father would be ashamed he let me mourn 5 summers in his library while the truth sat in a ledger 2 miles away. That's a hard thing to say about a dead man. I'm in a hard mood, Mr. Peyton. Dr. Amos Bell lived in a white house with blue shutters on the west side of town. His wife was visiting a sister in Providence. Nathaniel had known that because Abigail had announced it at supper the month before, with the particular pleasure she took in knowing other people's calendars. He knocked. Yes. Dr. Bell, Nathaniel Hale. The door came open 2 inches. Dr. Bell was in his shirt sleeves. He had the soft face of a man who had made soft choices for 30 years and slept through all of them. "Mr. Hale, are you ill?" "No, sir." "Then what? May I come in?" "It is early, Mr. Hale." "Yes, it is. May I come in?" The door opened a little wider. He went in. "What is this about?" "A patient of yours, doctor." "Which?" "A Miss Ruth Calloway." Dr. Bell's face did a thing. It was very small, very quick, very bad at hiding itself. The corner of his mouth twitched. "I do not recall the name. You signed a commitment paper on her in September of 1813. "I signed many papers, Mr. Hale." "You signed many papers for Abigail Pierce, yes." "Mr. Hale." "Sit down, Dr. Bell." "This is my house." "Yes, sit down in it." Dr. Bell sat. Nathaniel did not. "Doctor, I have a copy of the paper in my saddlebag. I have the clerk's seal on it. I want you to understand that what I am about to do will be the quietest mercy you will ever receive in your life, and it will only last if you earn it in the next 10 minutes. Do you understand me? Mr. Hale, I have a reputation in this town. You have a reputation in this town, doctor, because I have permitted you to. I have eaten at the Pierces every first Friday for 5 summers. You have been at that table. I have nodded at you. I have said, 'Good evening, doctor.' I have shaken your hand. I have done that over the body of a woman you helped bury alive and I did not know, and I will carry that for as long as I live. But you did know. Did you not? Mr. Hale, did you not? I was in a position. Did you know? Yes. The word landed in the room like a dropped plate. Say it again, doctor. Yes, Mr. Hale, I knew. You knew Ruth Calloway was Eleanor Pierce. Yes. You knew she was not hysterical. Yes. You knew she was drugged. I prepared the draft. You prepared it. Laudanum and a tincture. Mrs. Pierce said it was for her nerves. I did not know the full intention until the carriage came. Until the carriage came. Yes. And when the carriage came, I did nothing, Mr. Hale. You did nothing. I signed the paper. You signed a paper with a false name on a drugged girl who was about to be driven 3 days west to a confinement house in Worcester County, and you did nothing. Mr. Hale, I have a family. So did she. Dr. Bell put his face in his hands. How much? Nathaniel said. What? How much did Abigail Pierce pay you? Mr. Hale, please? How much? $400. $400. Yes, $400 for a girl's life. Mr. Hale. Stand up, doctor. Please, stand up and go to your desk and write down everything. The date, the amount, the draft, who brought the carriage, who paid the driver, what name was on the papers, what house they drove her to. Every name you can remember, every date, every lie. You will write it, and you will sign it, and you will take it to the courthouse this afternoon with me, and you will swear to it, before Mr. Peyton or I will walk out of this door right now, and I will go to Sheriff Josiah Reed, and Sheriff Reed and I will return this afternoon to arrest you for conspiracy to commit a woman against her will. They will kill me. Who will kill you? Abigail. Abigail Pierce will not kill anyone today, doctor. Abigail Pierce is going to sit in her parlor at supper time and not know her world has changed. Right. The doctor wrote. He wrote for an hour. He filled 5 pages in a shaking hand, and he signed each one, and Nathaniel folded them and put them in the inside pocket of his coat, and he walked Dr. Bell across town to the courthouse, and Mr. Peyton took the pages without a word, and witnessed each signature with his seal. And when Nathaniel stepped back out into the street, the sun had climbed past noon, and the town was going about the small business of a Saturday, and nobody in the town knew yet that a grave 2 miles to the east had become a lie. He rode home at a gallop. Caleb met him at the gate. "Nobody came, Mr. Hale." "Nobody?" "Not a soul." "Where is she?" "Kitchen, sir. She's been asking after you every quarter hour since 10. He went in through the kitchen door. Mrs. Mercer was at the table shelling peas. Eleanor was at the back sink in her linen cap and apron pretending to scour a pot. "Mara," Mrs. Mercer said without looking up, "leave that pot." "Yes, ma'am." "Come away from the window, girl." "Yes, ma'am." Eleanor turned and saw him. She did not move. "Mrs. Mercer," Nathaniel said, "leave us." "Mr. Hale." "Leave us, Mrs. Mercer." The old woman set the bowl of peas down. She looked at Eleanor. She looked at Nathaniel. She looked back at Eleanor. "How long have you known her?" Nathaniel said. "Sir, how long have you known who she is?" Mrs. Mercer set her hands flat on the table. 18 months, Mr. Hale. 18 months. Sir, you have known for 18 months and you did not tell me. She asked me not to, sir. Mrs. Mercer. Mr. Hale, I have been in this house since before you were born, and I have seen you grieve a girl for 5 summers, and when that girl came to my kitchen door with 40 cents and no hair, and asked for work under another name, I saw what she was running from in the first look she gave me, and I weighed it. I weighed your peace against her life, and I chose her life. Mrs. Mercer, you may turn me out, Mr. Hale. I will go. Mrs. Mercer, sit down. Sir, sit down and shell those peas and do not leave this kitchen. I am not turning you out. I am keeping you alive. Do you understand me? Sir, Abigail Pierce does not yet know what I know, but she will within a week. And when she does, every soul in this house is in the path of whatever she does next. You will not go to market alone. You will not open the front door without Caleb at the window. Am I understood? Yes, Mr. Hale? Thank you. Now leave us. She rose and she left and she closed the door behind her. Eleanor had not moved from the sink. Nathaniel. Eleanor. Did you find it? I found it. All of it. Most of it. The paper, Silas's signature, Belle's signature, the draft, the carriage, the $400. $400. That is what she paid him. $400. Eleanor, sit down. I am standing fine. Sit down anyway. She sat on the kitchen bench. She folded her hands in her lap, the way she had told him she had learned to fold them for 10 hours at a stretch, and he hated the fold on sight. Put your hands on the table. What? Put your hands on the table, flat, fingers apart. I want to see them. She did. Good. Nathaniel Hale, you are a strange man this morning. I am going to be strange for a while, Eleanor. Bear with me. I spent 5 summers looking at a stone with your name on it, and I am trying to teach my eyes to look at your hands instead. She looked at him. All right, she said. Be strange. Belle will swear in court. In court. Yes. You mean to take her to court? I mean to take her to the grave, Eleanor, but the court is the clean way. Nathaniel. I said the clean way. Don't speak of graves this week. I'm asking. Forgive me. Will the court believe a paid doctor? The court will believe a paid doctor with a ledger and a copy of the commitment paper, and the woman whose life he signed away, standing in the witness box with her own mouth and her own voice. The witness box. Yes. Me. Yes. She was quiet. Eleanor. I heard you. Can you do it? I don't know. That is a truthful answer, and I will take it. Nathaniel. I have not said my own name out loud to more than one person in 5 summers. You are asking me to say it in a room full of men. I am. Men who will ask me questions. Yes. Men who will ask me what I was wearing, whether I ate, whether I bathed, whether I bled on schedule, whether I spoke to any of the male attendants, whether I... Eleanor. Don't interrupt me. I have been imagining this room for 5 years. Let me imagine it out loud for a minute. All right. Men who will say that a woman who was committed for hysteria cannot now testify as to her own sanity because the committing itself is the proof. Men who will say that my memory is fevered. Men who will say that I am a poor servant girl pretending to be a dead heiress. Men who will look at my hair and say, Miss a virtuous young lady does not shear her own hair in a boarding house mirror. Eleanor. Men who will say it is very convenient that I surfaced in the house of the richest widower in Essex County, and very convenient for you, Mr. Hale, that your dead fiancé is alive. And isn't it strange that the two of you stand to inherit my father's debts paid by Abigail's dowry, if we undo the marriage that has not happened yet between you and my stepmother's surviving daughter? The marriage that has not happened and will not happen, Eleanor. They will say it anyway. Let them. Let them. Eleanor Pierce, listen to me. They will say every one of those things. I have been a merchant 11 years. I know what men in courtrooms say. They will say worse. But they will say them after you have sat in that box and said your name and your date of birth, and the name of the tea that was poured for you, and the color of the stocking that was used to bind your wrists, and the shape of the window in the room where you were kept, and the name of the laundress who told you about a man leaving white flowers on your grave. Nathaniel. Eleanor. I will do it. Eleanor. I said I will do it. You are certain. I am not certain. I am resolved. There is a difference. I am a woman who learned the difference in a house on a hill. Resolved is enough. Resolved is enough. One thing. Anything. My father. What about him? He signed the paper. He signed the paper. I want to look at him when he hears I am alive. I do not want him told in a letter. I do not want him told by a sheriff. I want to walk through the door of that house, and I want to look at Silas Pierce in his own dining room, and I want him to know I walked back to him on my own feet. Eleanor, is that too much? No, it is not too much. It is exactly enough. When? Monday. Monday. Monday morning. Early, with the sheriff, with Bell's statement, with the commitment paper, before the town is at breakfast. Monday morning? Eleanor, if you want another week, I will give you another week. I have had 5 summers of weeks, Nathaniel Hale. Monday then. Monday. She put her hand across the table, and she laid it over his. It was the first time she had touched him on purpose since she had laid a handkerchief against his scratched cheek under an apple tree, the summer she was 17. Her hand was rough from 2 years of lye and hearth ash. It was still her hand. Nathaniel. Yes. If Abigail Pierce reaches for me on Monday morning. She will not. If she does. She will not, Eleanor. Promise. I promise that the hand that poured a cup of tea in September of 1813 will not touch you again on this earth. She looked at him a long time. All right, she said. Monday. And she took her hand back, and she stood up, and she tied her apron tighter, and she went out the kitchen door toward the washhouse because Mara Reed still had a half day of work ahead of her, and Eleanor Pierce had 2 more nights to keep breathing under a borrowed name before she walked through the front door of her father's house and took her own name back in broad daylight. Sheriff Josiah Reed was waiting at Nathaniel's gate on Monday morning with 2 deputies and a face that had not slept. Mr. Hale. Sheriff. You sure about this? I am sure. Nathaniel. Silas Pierce sat on my wedding pew. Abigail Pierce brought a ham to my wife when our boy was born. Sheriff Reed. Are you telling me you will not ride? I am telling you I would like to be wrong about what I am about to ride to. I would like that too, Josiah. Then bring out the girl. Eleanor came down the porch steps in a plain gray dress Mrs. Mercer had stayed up all Sunday night to sew. Her hair was pinned under a simple bonnet. She was not carrying anything. Nathaniel had asked her the night before if she wanted to carry the promise ring, and she had said no, not yet, because a ring was a thing a man gave a woman, and today she was not going to her father's house as any man's woman. She was going as herself. Sheriff Reed lifted his hat. Miss Pierce. She stopped on the last step. Say it again, Sheriff. Miss Pierce. Say it one more time, please. Miss Eleanor Pierce. She closed her eyes. Thank you. Ma'am, I am sorry. Sheriff Reed, I am not ready to take sorries yet. I am grateful you know my name. Today, that is enough. Yes, ma'am. They rode. Silas Pierce opened his own front door for the second time in a week. He was in his dressing gown. His hair was flat on one side. He was holding a cup of coffee. Nathaniel? It is 6 in the morning. What? Then he saw the sheriff. Then he saw Eleanor. The coffee cup fell. It fell on the entry rug, and it did not break, only rolled, and the coffee bled into the wool in a slow brown shape, and Silas Pierce made a sound that was not a word. Good morning, Father. No. Good morning, Father. No, no, no. Father. You are dead. No, Father. I was hidden. That is a different thing. Silas Pierce's knees went. He caught himself on the doorframe with a hand that had signed his daughter's false name away in September of 1813, and that hand would not hold him now, and he went down onto the rug in his own entry hall, in his dressing gown, in front of his own daughter, in front of a sheriff. And he began to weep the way a man weeps when a debt has come due that he has always known he owed. Eleanor. Father. Eleanor. Get up off the floor, Father. Eleanor. Get up off the floor. You taught me that a Pierce does not kneel in the entry hall. Get up. He got up. Behind him on the stairs, a door on the second floor clicked open. Abigail Pierce came down the stairs in a dressing gown of pale blue silk. Her hair already pinned her face, already composed. Because Abigail Pierce had not been caught unprepared by a doorbell in 25 years of marriage. She was 3 steps down when she saw Eleanor. She did not stop. She did not falter. She took the last 3 steps at the same measured pace, and she reached the bottom, and she folded her hands in front of her waist, and she smiled. Well, she said. What a surprise. Abigail. Sheriff Reed, good morning. Nathaniel, dear, you look unwell, and I am sorry I do not know this young woman. Have we met? Abigail. I do not think we have. She has a sort of familiar face. Is she from the village? Abigail Pierce. You know who I am. I am afraid I do not, dear. Silas, who is this young woman in our entry hall at 6 in the morning? Silas Pierce did not speak. Silas. Abigail. Silas, who is this young woman? Abigail, it is Eleanor. It is not Eleanor Silas. Eleanor is buried in Essex County. I laid the first flower on that stone myself. Sheriff, I am afraid someone has played a very cruel prank on my husband. Whoever this person is, she is not our daughter. Mrs. Pierce. Yes, Sheriff. I have a commitment paper signed by your husband in September of 1813. The name on the paper is Ruth Calloway. The doctor who witnessed that paper was Amos Bell. Dr. Bell came to my office on Saturday evening and swore under oath that the woman committed under the name Ruth Calloway was in fact Eleanor Pierce, your stepdaughter, and that you paid him $400 for the prescription of laudanum used to drug her before the carriage arrived. Sheriff. Mrs. Pierce, I have that statement in my saddlebag. I have read it 3 times. I wish to God I had not read it once. Abigail did not move. Her hands were still folded in front of her waist. Dr. Bell, she said slowly, is a sick man. Ma'am? Dr. Bell has a nervous condition. His wife has spoken of it often. I am afraid anything he has sworn to on a Saturday evening after a glass of wine is not. Mrs. Pierce. Dr. Bell was sober, and Mr. Peyton at the courthouse witnessed the signature himself. Mr. Peyton is 90. Mr. Peyton is 71, ma'am, and his eyes are fine. Sheriff Reed. My husband and I have done nothing but grieve the loss of our daughter for 5 summers. If some unfortunate young woman has been coached by Mr. Hale to impersonate Abigail, it was Eleanor's voice, quiet, flat, not asking. Abigail Pierce. Child, I do not know you. Look at me. I have looked at you. Look again. Dear I. The tea was bergamot with too much honey. You poured it into the blue cup with the chipped rim because the blue cup was mine, and you wanted me to drink from it so I would not suspect the smell. You sat across from me. You asked after my wedding dress. You asked whether I had chosen a hymn for the ceremony. You said, "I hope it is the one your mother loved." You said it with your mouth soft. You said it while the laudanum was taking hold of my tongue. I remember the last word I said to you, Abigail. Do you remember it? Abigail did not speak. The last word I said to you before my head went down on that tablecloth was thank you. I said thank you for a cup of tea that you brewed to bury me in. That is the word I carried with me into the carriage. That is the word I carried into that house on the hill. That is the word I lived on for 3 years and 4 months, and I lived on it because I wanted one day to stand in front of you and give it back. Young woman. Thank you, Abigail, for the tea. Abigail's face did not change. It did not change, and it did not change, and it did not change. And then in one small moment that Nathaniel Hale would remember the rest of his life, a single muscle at the corner of her eye twitched. Silas, she said, still smooth. Our daughter has returned. Remarkable. Praise be. Abigail. Remarkable. Abigail, please. Sheriff Reed. My stepdaughter, as you can see, is in an extremely disturbed state. You will, of course, allow me to call Dr. Bell. No, ma'am. I beg your pardon. You will not call Dr. Bell. Dr. Bell is in custody at the county jail since Sunday at noon. You will not send for any physician this morning. You will sit in your parlor with your husband and your stepdaughter, and you will answer my questions, and you will not leave the parlor for any reason until I am finished with you. Sheriff. Ma'am, sit down in the parlor. Abigail sat in the parlor. She did it slowly, and she did it with her chin up, and she arranged the skirt of her dressing gown on the settee as if she were at a tea. Silas sat across from her. He did not look at her. He did not look at his daughter. He looked at a spot on the carpet that had no meaning at all. Nathaniel put himself at the door with his arms crossed. Sheriff Reed took the chair nearest the fire. Eleanor did not sit. She stood in the middle of her own stepmother's parlor with her hands at her sides, and she waited. Clara! It was Eleanor again, louder this time toward the stairs. A door opened above. Clara, come down. Slow footsteps. Bare feet on the stair runner. Clara came down in a nightgown with a shawl over her shoulders, and she was 21 years old. And her face when she saw Eleanor was the face of a child who has been waiting without knowing. She was waiting for someone to open a door that was locked on the inside. Eleanor. Clara. Eleanor. Clara came down the last 3 steps, and she stopped in the parlor doorway. I thought you were dead. I know. I know, Clara. I put a flower on your grave every 1st of May. I picked them from the orchard. I put them there alone. I did not tell Mother. She does not know I went. Clara, Abigail said sharply. Go upstairs. No. Clara Pierce, go upstairs. No, Mother. Clara. No, no, no. Clara's voice broke on the 3rd no, and she came the rest of the way into the parlor, and she stopped in front of Eleanor, and she said, I am sorry, I am sorry, I am sorry, I am sorry. Clara, I heard the carriage, the night it came. I was 16. I heard it. I heard you crying under the laudanum on the stairs. They were carrying you past my door, and I heard you, and I did not open my door. Eleanor, I did not open my door. I stayed in my bed with the blanket over my head, and I pretended I did not hear, and I have heard that carriage every night for 5 summers. I have heard it every night I have. Clara, Clara, breathe. I am sorry. Clara. Eleanor, I am sorry. Clara, sit down. Clara sat on the rug at Eleanor's feet. Eleanor did not stop her. Clara sat on the rug of her mother's parlor in her nightgown in front of her older sister, and she put her face in her hands, and she did not cry. Pretty, she cried like a child. Abigail stood. Sheriff Reed, my younger daughter, is overwrought. Mrs. Pierce, sit down. I will. Sit down, ma'am. Abigail sat. Sheriff Reed turned his chair a 1/4 inch to face Clara. Miss Clara. Sheriff. Miss Clara, are you able to speak? Yes, sir. Miss Clara, I am going to ask you a hard question. I am sorry to ask it in front of your mother. But I am going to ask it, and I would like an honest answer. Yes, sir? Miss Clara, did you ever see money change hands in this house between your mother and Dr. Amos Bell? Clara did not lift her face from her hands. Yes, sir. When? Many times. Many times. He came on the first Monday of every month. She paid him in the study. The door was never quite closed. I was a child, sir. I walked the halls. I saw. Did you ever see a ledger? A book she wrote payments in? Yes, sir. Where is it kept? Abigail. Silas said, almost a whisper. Shut up, Silas. Clara, where is it kept? Third drawer of the writing desk in her dressing room. It is behind a false back. I found it when I was 17. I have not touched it. I was afraid to touch it. But I know where it is. Abigail Pierce stood up for the second time. This girl is a liar. Sheriff, my daughter has been unwell in her nerves for years. I will not sit in my own parlor and, Mrs. Pierce, if you rise from that settee one more time, I am going to ask my deputy to place you in restraints in your own entryway. Do I make myself clear? You would not dare. I would, ma'am. Sheriff Reed, my husband is a... Your husband, ma'am, has not said a single word in defense of you since my deputy opened that door. Look at him. Silas Pierce was weeping into his dressing gown. Silas, Abigail hissed. Silas, speak. Abigail. Silas, speak. Tell them. Abigail. Silas Pierce, tell them. Silas lifted his face. It was wet. It was the face of a man who had lived in a locked room inside himself for 5 summers and had finally heard someone knock. I signed the paper. Silas. I signed it, Abigail. Silas, not a word more. I signed the paper, and I knew she was not Ruth Calloway, and I knew she was my Eleanor, and I signed because you told me the bank would take the house, and the house was my father's house, and I am a coward, Abigail. I am a coward. I am a coward. I am. Silas Pierce, stop talking. I am a coward. Silas. I am a coward, and I have been a coward, and my girl is standing in this parlor, and she is alive. Abigail. She is alive, and I buried her. I buried her. I buried her with stones in a box. Silas, so help me God. Don't. Eleanor said. Abigail turned. Don't say God in this room, Abigail. Not today. Abigail looked at her stepdaughter for a long, cold moment. Then she did the thing a person like Abigail Pierce does when the room has turned against her. She changed shape. Eleanor, dear. Don't. Eleanor, you must understand. Don't. Eleanor, the family was ruined. Your father's debts were... Don't. Eleanor, I was trying to preserve... Don't say my name. Eleanor, you do not get to say my name. You took it off me in September of 1813. You took my name off me, and you put another name on me in a book. You do not get to pick my name back up off the floor and put it in your mouth this morning because the sheriff is in your parlor. It is not yours to say. Abigail's lip trembled. It was the first real thing Nathaniel had ever seen on her face. Eleanor, I was a stepmother in a house with no money. I was trying to keep the roof on our heads. I was trying to keep Clara from becoming what, Abigail? Me, Eleanor. From becoming me. That is what you were going to say. You were trying to keep Clara from becoming me. You were trying to keep your younger daughter from ending up in a carriage at midnight with a stocking around her wrists, and your plan for keeping her safe was to put me in the carriage first. Eleanor the First. You sold me Abigail. You sold me for $400 to Amos Bell and a house on a hill, and you wore my mother's pearls to supper 3 weeks later. Abigail's eyes snapped. Your mother was weak, Eleanor. The whole parlor went quiet. Clara lifted her face. Silas stopped weeping. Nathaniel unfolded his arms. Say that again, Abigail Pierce. Eleanor, say it again. I only meant, say my mother was weak one more time in this house, and I will put you through that window myself, sheriff, or no sheriff. Say it. Eleanor, please. No, Abigail. You do not get please. You do not get pearls. You do not get my name. You do not get my mother's name. You do not get Clara. You do not get this house. And you do not get to pretend this morning that you did any of it for love of anybody but yourself. Eleanor, the law. The law is standing in your parlor with a warrant, Abigail. Look up. Sheriff Reed had already risen. He had the folded paper in his hand. He had had it in his hand for 5 minutes. Mrs. Abigail Pierce. Sheriff? Stand up. Sheriff Reed, Stand up, ma'am. She stood. Mrs. Pierce, I am arresting you this 23rd day of August, 1818, on the charge of conspiracy to commit a woman against her will, the charge of fraud in the signing of a commitment paper under a false name, and the charge of the theft and conversion of the property of one Eleanor Pierce, while said Eleanor Pierce was presumed deceased. Further charges to follow pending examination of the ledger in your dressing room and the sworn testimony of Dr. Amos Bell. Do you understand the charges as read? Sheriff, do you understand? I understand. Deputy? The deputy stepped forward with a length of cord. My wrists, Sheriff. I am afraid so, ma'am. In my own dressing gown. In whatever you are wearing, ma'am. Abigail held her wrists out in front of her. They shook. They shook the way a woman's wrists shake when she has poured tea for another woman who never came home. Eleanor watched her. She did not smile. She did not weep. She did not speak. Sheriff Reed bound Abigail Pierce's wrists with a cord that was not a lavender stocking, and he walked her out the front door of the Pierce house, past a servant girl in the hall who dropped her apron in both hands and did not pick it up again. And he put Abigail into the back of the sheriff's wagon at 7:15 in the morning, and somewhere in the town a church bell was ringing for an ordinary Monday, and nobody in the town yet knew. Clara was still on the rug. Silas was still in his chair. Nathaniel was still at the door. Eleanor turned. Father. Eleanor. Get up. Eleanor, I cannot. Father, get up. You signed a paper. You will sign another today. Sheriff Reed will bring it to you this afternoon. You will sign it, and you will tell the court under oath everything you knew and everything you did and everything you did not do. You will not weep your way out of this. You will sit your way through it. Do you understand me? Eleanor. Do you understand me? Yes. Yes, daughter. Yes. Good. She looked at Clara. Clara. Eleanor. Get up off the rug. Eleanor, I know. Get up off the rug. You have a ledger to show the sheriff. Clara got up. Eleanor turned and walked out of the parlor without looking at the settee, where her stepmother had sat 10 minutes before, and she walked down the entry hall, and she walked past the cooling stain of coffee on the wool rug, and she walked out the front door of her father's house into the August morning. And Nathaniel Hale walked out behind her, and on the porch, she finally stopped. She stood at the top of the porch steps, with her hand on the railing. Nathaniel. Yes, I think I am going to be ill. Be ill. I have got you. Not in front of the sheriff. Behind the hedge. She went behind the hedge. He stood at the end of the hedge with his back to her and his hat in his hand, and when she was finished, she came back around it with the bonnet straightened, and she wiped her mouth with the back of her hand, and she said very quietly, Take me home. Home. Your house. Our house. Don't, Nathaniel. Not yet. Your house. That is enough today. Our house one day. One day. Today, your house. All right, Eleanor. All right, Nathaniel. He helped her down the porch steps, and Caleb brought the horses around, and Sheriff Reed's wagon was already a quarter-mile down the road with Abigail Pierce in the back of it, and the town bell had stopped ringing, and the morning had begun the slow, ordinary business of deciding what it was going to tell itself about the Pierce family before sundown, and none of it would be a lie any longer, because a woman with a scar on the inside of her wrist had walked back into her father's entry hall at 6 in the morning and said her own name out loud in front of witnesses. The trial of Abigail Pierce was set for the second Monday in September, and in the 3 weeks between the arrest and the courthouse, the town of Essex County did what towns do when a grave is opened in broad daylight. It whispered. It took sides. It pretended it had always known. Nathaniel did not let Eleanor hear the whispering. You are not going to market this week. Nathaniel. You are not. I will not be kept in a house, Nathaniel Hale. You will not be kept. You will be spared. There is a difference. Is there? Eleanor. There is a woman at the butcher's right now telling 3 other women that you must have had a lover at the confinement house, or else why did you not come home sooner? Her hand stopped on the table. Who said that? It does not matter who said it. Who, Nathaniel? Mrs. Whitfield, the banker's wife. Mrs. Whitfield held my hand at my mother's funeral when I was 11. I know she did. Mrs. Whitfield ate at our table. I know, Eleanor. Mrs. Whitfield is saying I had a lover at the confinement house. Eleanor, sit down. I will not sit down. Eleanor. Nathaniel Hale. I spent 3 years and 4 months in a house where a matron wrote down every time I laughed, and I have spent 5 days in this town as myself, and already the banker's wife has made me into a woman with a lover, and this is what I came home for, is it? This is what we are going to change, Eleanor. How? 1 room at a time, 1 witness at a time, starting Monday at 9 o'clock in the courthouse. Nathaniel. Yes. I am afraid. I know you are. I am afraid in a way. I was not afraid in the house on the hill. In the house on the hill, I was afraid of being forgotten. Here, I am afraid of being remembered wrong. Eleanor. Yes. Come here. She came to him. He did not hold her. He had learned in 3 weeks that holding her was a thing she needed to permit, and that the permission came slow, and that rushing the permission cost him a day. He put his hand palm up on the table between them. She put her hand in his. Eleanor Pierce. On Monday morning you will walk up the courthouse steps. You will walk up them on your own feet. I will be 3 steps behind you. Sheriff Reed will be 1 step in front of you. Clara will be beside you. And when you step into that witness box, you will say your name out loud, and the man who writes down the record of this county for the next 100 years will write Eleanor Pierce, and he will not write Ruth Calloway ever again. Nathaniel. Yes. Say that 1 more time. On Monday morning, you will walk up the courthouse steps. No, the last part. The man who writes down the record of this county for the next 100 years will write Eleanor Pierce. She closed her eyes. Say it a 3rd time. Eleanor Pierce. Thank you. Monday came. Eleanor did not sleep Sunday night. Nathaniel heard her walking in the green bedroom above his study at 2 and at 3 and at 4:30, and he did not go up because she had asked him not to go up because she had said the night before, "If you come up Sunday night, I will cry, and if I cry Sunday night, I will not have tears for Monday morning, and I will not face that courtroom dry." She came down at 6 in a navy dress and the same plain bonnet, and Mrs. Mercer had coffee and bread ready on the table, and Eleanor ate half a slice of the bread and all of the coffee, and she did not speak. Nathaniel did not speak either. At 8:30, Caleb brought the carriage. At 8:45, they stood at the bottom of the courthouse steps. The steps were full. The whole town had come. Eleanor stopped walking. Nathaniel. I am here. There are a lot of people. Yes. Is Mrs. Whitfield in there? Yes. Is the butcher in there? Yes, Eleanor. Is the pastor in there? Yes. Every face I have known since I was a child. Every face. Nathaniel, my knees. I know. My knees, Nathaniel. Eleanor Pierce. Yes. Do you remember what you told me the first night, in the library? I told you a great many things, Nathaniel. You told me you learned the difference between certain and resolved. She lifted her chin. I did tell you that. Are you resolved? I am resolved. Then up we go. She walked up the steps. She walked up them alone. Nathaniel 3 behind, Sheriff Reed 1 in front. Clara at her left elbow in a gray dress of her own. The crowd parted because it did not know what else to do, and Eleanor Pierce walked up the courthouse steps of the county that had buried her, and she did not look at a single face on the stairs. Inside the courtroom was hot. The judge was a man named Whitaker, 70 years old, who had known Silas Pierce's father in the war. Abigail was already seated at the defense table in a black dress. She had lost weight in 3 weeks in the county jail. Her hair was flat. Her hands were folded in her lap the way she had taught Eleanor to fold hers. And Eleanor saw the folded hands across the room and felt for one sharp second all the air in the room go thin. Then she sat. "Miss Pierce?" "Your Honor." "Miss Pierce, are you prepared to testify this morning?" "I am, Your Honor." "You may take the box." She rose. She walked to the witness box. She stepped up into it, and she laid her hand on the Bible the clerk offered her. And the clerk said the words, and she said, "I do." And she sat down, and she folded her hands in her lap the way Abigail Pierce had taught her. And then very deliberately she unfolded them and laid them flat on the wooden rail in front of her palms, down both scars visible. The prosecutor stood. "Miss Pierce, for the record, please state your full name." "Eleanor Margaret Pierce." "Your date of birth?" "The 4th of April, 1794. "The names of your parents?" "My father is Silas Pierce. My mother was Margaret Holloway Pierce. She died in the spring of 1806 when I was 12 years old of a lung sickness." "Thank you. Miss Pierce, do you recognize the defendant seated to your left?" Eleanor did not look left. "I recognize her voice, sir, before I turn my head. Is that adequate?" "Miss Pierce, you may decline to turn your head if you wish." "I will turn my head." She turned it. She looked at Abigail Pierce. Abigail did not look back. "I recognize the defendant, sir. She is Abigail Weston Pierce, my stepmother, who has been married to my father since the autumn of 1808. "Miss Pierce, do you remember the afternoon of the 15th of September, 1813? "I remember it, sir." "Please describe what you remember." "I was 19 years old. I was engaged to be married on the 18th of October to Mr. Nathaniel Hale of this county. My fiancée had ridden to New York that morning on shipping business and was expected back in 4 days. I was in the upstairs sitting room of my father's house mending a hem. My stepmother came to the door of the sitting room and said," she paused. "Take your time, Miss Pierce." Why?" She said, "Eleanor, dear, I have had your favorite tea brewed. Come sit with me a while." And I went. "Go on." She poured the tea into a blue china cup with a chipped rim. The cup was mine. It had been my mother's before me. She knew it was mine. That was why she chose it. "What happened after you drank the tea?" "After 2 swallows I felt unwell. By 3 swallows the ceiling began to slide. I remember saying, 'I think I need to lie down.' And I remember her saying, 'Of course, dear, of course.' And I remember her hand on my elbow, guiding me toward the stairs. And I remember thinking that her hand was too firm for a hand that was helping me. The last thing I remember in that house was the corner of the banister and the word 'thank you' coming out of my mouth and her saying, 'You are welcome, dear.'" The courtroom was silent. "Miss Pierce, when did you next wake?" "I do not know the exact hour. I know the place. I woke in the back of a closed carriage. My wrists were bound in front of me with a stocking. The stocking smelled of lavender. My stepmother wore lavender water. It was her stocking." "Miss Pierce, were you able at any point during that journey to identify yourself to the driver?" "I tried twice, sir. I said, 'Sir, my name is Eleanor Pierce of Essex County. This is a mistake. Please stop the carriage.' The driver did not answer. On the 3rd day we arrived at a house on a hill. A woman at the door called me Ruth Calloway. I said, 'My name is not Ruth Calloway. My name is Eleanor Pierce.' The woman wrote in a book, 'Patient persists in the delusion that she is a Massachusetts heiress.'" A murmur crossed the gallery. Judge Whittaker struck his gavel once. It stopped. "Miss Pierce, how long were you held in that house?" 3 years and 4 months, sir." "Were you held against your will the entire duration?" "I was, sir." "How did you leave?" "A fever went through the house in the winter of 1816 into 1817. 3 members of the staff took to their beds. The doors were unlocked for short periods while the staff was ill. I walked out of a side kitchen at first light on the 2nd of January 1817 with a stolen cloak and 40 cents and a crust of bread. I walked 11 days. I reached Massachusetts on the 13th of January. I have been in Essex County ever since." "Miss Pierce, Where have you been living since January of 1817? For the last 20 months, I have been employed as a scullery maid in the household of Mr. Nathaniel Hale under the name Mara Reed. I was recognized by Mr. Hale on the night of the 2nd of August, 1818, when he saw a scar on the inside of my right wrist that he remembered from the summer of 1811. Why did you not return to your father's house in January of 1817? Because, on the night I returned to Essex County, I stood in the alley behind my father's pantry, and I watched my stepmother wear my mother's pearls to a Tuesday supper, and I understood that if I knocked on that door, I would be back in the carriage before the bread cooled on the table. Miss Pierce, why did you not go directly to Mr. Hale? She paused. She looked for the first time since stepping into the box at Nathaniel. He was sitting 4 rows back, both hands on his knees, and the look on his face was not the look he had worn at her graveside for 5 summers. It was a different look entirely. She looked at that look for a full 3 seconds, and then she looked back at the prosecutor. Because, sir, in January of 1817, I was a woman whose father had signed a paper that said she was mad, whose name was on a gravestone 2 miles east of this courthouse, and whose entire town had grieved for her for 4 years. I did not believe any door in this county would open for the woman I had become. I believed the only way I would live to tell this story was to live in the margins of the man who had loved me long enough to know whether the county would allow me back into the light or put me back in the carriage. I chose the margins, sir. I chose them because I was afraid. I am not afraid any longer. I am sitting in this witness box, and I am telling the truth, and I would like the record to show that the woman Ruth Calloway committed by Silas Pierce and witnessed by Amos Bell on the 17th of September 1813 never existed. There has only ever been Eleanor Pierce. There is only Eleanor Pierce now. Thank you. The courtroom was very, very quiet. Judge Whittaker cleared his throat. The clerk will so enter in the record of this court that the woman committed on the 17th of September 1813 under the name Ruth Calloway is in fact Miss Eleanor Margaret Pierce of Essex County, daughter of Silas Pierce and the late Margaret Holloway Pierce, and that the said Eleanor Pierce is living sound of mind and present in this court. The clerk's pen scratched. Eleanor closed her eyes. She kept them closed for the length of one slow breath. When she opened them, she was a woman whose name was written in ink in the record of her county, and would be written there for 100 years after her bones went back into the earth. She would remember the scratch of that pen longer than she would remember the sound of the gavel. The verdict came 2 days later. Abigail Pierce was convicted on 3 counts. She was sentenced to 12 years in the state penitentiary and ordered to make restitution of the stolen pearls, the stolen bank trust, and the $400 paid to Amos Bell. Bell was convicted on 2 counts and lost his medical license and his home. Silas Pierce, in exchange for turning state's evidence and surrendering all future claim to his late wife's estate in favor of his daughters, received a public censure, a fine, and the lifelong condition of never again signing a legal paper in the county of Essex without the co-signature of his elder daughter. When Judge Whittaker read that last condition, Eleanor did not smile. She nodded once. It was enough. She did not go to the penitentiary to watch Abigail Pierce be taken away. Nathaniel asked her the morning of the transfer if she wished to go. She said no. She said, "I do not need to see the door close on her. I have the paper in the record. That is my door." They married in the last week of October quietly in the small chapel where her mother was buried. Clara stood as her witness. Mrs. Mercer cried. Caleb cried harder. Silas Pierce was not invited, not out of cruelty, but because Eleanor had said, "Father, I love you enough to forgive you in time. I do not love you enough to let you walk me down an aisle this year. Come to the house on Christmas. We will see where we are." He came on Christmas. They were somewhere. It was not everything. It was a beginning. The nights were the hardest. Eleanor did not sleep through a whole night for the first 6 months. She woke at sounds the house did not make. She woke at sounds the house did make a log, settling a shudder in the wind, and she sat up with her hand at her throat, and Nathaniel learned without being taught to wake with her, and say nothing, and simply be awake in the dark beside her, until she could lie back down. She flinched the first winter when he closed a door. He stopped closing doors. For the rest of his life, Nathaniel Hale lived in a house where no interior door was ever fully shut. Guests thought it peculiar. He did not explain. Neither did she. She would not eat from a blue china cup. She could not abide the smell of lavender. She kept a small jar of 40 cents on the mantel in her dressing room, and she never spent them, and she never told anyone, not even him, what the 40 cents were for. He did not ask. He had learned finally what it was to love a woman whose soul had been buried and dug back up with her own hands. It was not the love of a man for a girl under an apple tree. That love had been soft. This love was harder. This love meant sitting in a dark room at 3 in the morning while a woman shook and not fixing her and not holding her and not promising her anything and only saying when she finally spoke, "I am here, Eleanor, I am here," on a warm afternoon in May of 1819. Nearly a year after the night he had caught her wrist in the library, Nathaniel walked out behind the house and found her in the kitchen garden, with a basket of cut flowers over her arm. Not lilies, not white. Cornflowers, marigolds, sweet peas. A rough handful of things that had grown from seeds she had put in the ground herself that spring. "Eleanor." "Nathaniel, I have something for you. I have something for you first. Oh, I have decided what the 40 cents are for." He did not speak. "They are for the Quaker woman in Connecticut, the one who fed me a bowl of beans and did not ask my name. I am going to ride out in June with you or without you, and I am going to find her, and I am going to put those 40 cents in her hand. It will not be enough. It will be the beginning of enough. Eleanor, that is what I decided this morning. With me. With you, if you will come. I will come." "Good. Now mine." "Yours." He held out his closed hand. He opened it. In his palm lay a small ring. It was gold, and it was plain, and it had a tiny garnet at the center that was not worth more than $2 in any market in Boston. He had given it to her under an apple tree in the summer she was 17. She had been wearing it the afternoon Abigail Pierce poured her a cup of bergamot tea. It had been taken off her finger in the back of a carriage on a road whose name she had never learned. It had been returned to him in an envelope 3 weeks after the arrest by Clara, who had found it in the false back of a writing desk under a ledger. "Nathaniel." "Eleanor, I told you the first night that I was not ready for a ring." "You did tell me that." "I was not ready because I did not know that first night whether I would still be standing in August." "I know. I am standing." "Yes, you are. I am standing in a garden I planted, with flowers I chose, wearing a dress I was not afraid to put on this morning, in a house where every door is open, in a county where my name is in the book. Yes, Eleanor. Put it on me." He put the ring on her finger. It fit the way it had fit when she was 17. "Eleanor Pierce." "Eleanor Hale Nathaniel, you may say it now. I have carried the other name long enough. Eleanor Hale." "That is better. Eleanor Hale. I do not know what I did right in this life to be the man standing in a garden with you on a Tuesday afternoon in May of 1819. I will spend whatever years I am given trying to deserve it. I will not close the doors in this house. I will not serve tea from a blue cup. I will not plant lavender. I will ride with you to Connecticut in June, and I will stand behind you while you put 40 cents in a stranger's hand. And I will stand behind you every other day of your life while you decide what else you are owed and what else you are going to give." "Nathaniel." "Yes?" "Stand beside me, not behind." "Beside you." "Beside me." "All right." She laid her hand with the ring on it against his cheek. Her palm was rough. It was the hand of a woman who had scrubbed a hearth in ash at midnight under a borrowed name and walked 11 days on 40 cents, and stood in a witness box in a hot courtroom, and spoken her own name into the record of her county, and planted cornflowers in a garden that was hers. And it was the finest hand he had ever felt, and he turned his face into it, and he kissed the scar at the base of her thumb, the crescent-shaped scar he had kissed under an apple tree when she was 17, and she did not flinch. She did not flinch. "Nathaniel." "Yes." We are going to be all right. Yes, Eleanor. Say it. We are going to be all right. Again. We are going to be all right. One more time, for the record. Eleanor Hale, for the record. We are going to be all right. We are. And they were.